In Vedic astrology, the moon embodies the softest yet most profound aspects of human experience. It represents the emotional body, the reflective mind, and the capacity for feeling and nurturance. The moon governs receptivity, tenderness, intuition, and adaptability, much like the gentle pull of tides that it commands upon the earth. As a natural significator, or karaka, the moon presides over the mind, manas, mother, emotions, nourishment, beauty, and public popularity. It is deeply connected to mental stability, happiness, and the ability to form emotional bonds. Without the grace of the moon, the soul's journey through material existence remains restless and unfulfilled. The role of the moon in life is vital. It acts as the internal compass that guides our emotional responses. It determines what gives us comfort, how we nurture others, how we seek security, and how we dream and imagine possibilities beyond our immediate reality. The moon is the bridge between the body and the soul, shaping our day-to-day emotional life. If we imagine a person completely ruled by the moon, we would meet someone deeply caring, sensitive, emotionally intelligent, and capable of profound empathy. Such an individual would be reflective, reflective, intuitive, soft-spoken, and easily influenced by the moods of others. They may seek emotional security through relationships, home, and familiar environments. However, if challenged, they may become overly dependent, moody, or withdrawn, much like the waning moon losing its fullness. In terms of planetary friendships and enmities, the moon considers the Sun and Mercury as its friends. It remains neutral towards Mars, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. However, it regards Rahu and Ketu as its natural enemies, as their malefic influence deeply disturbs the mind's peace, clarity, and emotional well-being. Rahu clouds the moon with illusions and anxieties, while Ketu dries out its emotional sensitivity, leading to disconnection and inner restlessness. The moon owns the fourth house of the natural zodiac, Cancer, a sign deeply associated with emotions, protection, and home. In the Nakshatra scheme, it governs Rohini, Hasta, and Shravana, each carrying themes of growth, nourishment, and deep listening. Unlike many other planets, the moon's aspect is unique. It has a full aspect, or drishti, on the 7th house from its placement. This aspect subtly influences relationships, partnerships, and the way we project our emotional needs onto others. It creates a magnetic pull toward emotional connection, seeking reflection and balance through another. Thus, understanding the moon is essential not only for reading a chart, but for truly understanding the emotional fabric of human life. When the moon is strong, life flows with grace. When it is disturbed, even the brightest successes can feel hollow. The first house, also known as the ascendant or lagna, represents the self, the physical body, appearance, temperament, vitality, and how we initiate life. It defines the personality and the way others perceive us. When the moon occupies the first house, it brings its own fundamental qualities of sensitivity, emotionality, nurturing instincts, and adaptability directly into the core of the individual's identity. The person's emotional state becomes deeply intertwined with their sense of self. The fundamental role of the moon in any house is to reflect, adapt, and nurture. In the first house, it reflects the emotional body onto the physical form. These natives are intuitive by nature, often reacting to their environment based on instinct rather than logic. Their moods can visibly affect their behavior, expressions, and even health. Regarding strength and status, the moon here generally acts as a benefic planet, though its strength depends heavily on its waxing or waning phase. A waxing moon, especially between the 5th and 10th lunar, grants strength, confidence, and emotional vitality. A waning moon can make the native more introverted, insecure, or dependent on external validation. If placed in Cancer or Taurus, where moon is exalted, it gains immense power and gives a radiant, charming, and magnetic personality. If debilitated in Scorpio, it can cause emotional volatility, hypersensitivity, and unpredictable self-expression. The impact on life is significant. The natives' emotions govern their approach to life itself. They seek emotional connection in every endeavor and are highly influenced by public opinion and personal relationships. This placement often blesses one with popularity, a pleasing appearance, and an empathetic demeanor, but emotional stability becomes crucial for overall success. If afflicted, they may struggle with self-image issues and emotional instability. As for aspects, the moon from the first house fully aspects the 7th house of partnerships, marriage, and public dealings. This aspect brings emotional energy into relationships, making the native highly sensitive to the needs and moods of partners. Relationships form the emotional backbone of their lives, and any imbalance in this sphere can deeply disturb their mental peace. Thus, the moon in the first house creates a personality that lives through feelings, responsive, caring, and intuitive, but also vulnerable to emotional fluctuations. Its balance is key to building a strong, harmonious life journey. The second house in astrology governs accumulated wealth, speech, family lineage, values, and early childhood conditioning. It reflects our material security, self-worth, and the resources we draw upon in life. When the moon is positioned in the second house, it brings its nurturing, reflective, and emotionally adaptive qualities into these material and familial domains. The emotional mind becomes closely tied to matters of finance, family bonds, food habits, and personal values. The fundamental role of the moon remains to nurture, adapt, and sustain emotional and material well-being. Here, the moon acts as the protector of family traditions and emotional security derived from possessions and close relationships. There is a natural emotional attachment to wealth, stability, and the approval of one's family and community. In terms of strength, the moon usually acts as a benefic in the second house. Provided it is unafflicted, a waxing moon enhances the accumulation of wealth, sweetness of speech, and emotional fulfillment through family life. A waning or afflicted moon may lead to financial instability, emotional dependence on material security, or vulnerability through family conflicts. If placed in exaltation in Taurus, the moon performs exceptionally well, granting immense emotional and financial richness. In Scorpio, where it is debilitated, it may create deep emotional insecurities tied to financial status and family dynamics. The impact on life is substantial. Such individuals often find emotional nourishment through possessions, family, or food. Their speech is usually gentle, soothing, and persuasive, provided the moon is strong. Financial ups and downs may directly affect their emotional well-being. Stability in family life becomes vital for maintaining emotional balance and confidence in life pursuits. From the second house, the moon fully aspects the 8th house, which governs sudden events, longevity, secrets, and transformation. This aspect can make the native intuitively aware of hidden matters and deeply sensitive to issues of vulnerability, inheritance, or emotional undercurrents in relationships. Emotional security must be consciously developed to navigate the inevitable changes life brings. In essence, the moon in the second house blends emotional needs with material stability. When nurtured rightly, it grants a life of emotional richness and material prosperity. If neglected, it can lead to emotional entanglements with possessions and fluctuating self-worth. The third house governs communication, courage, initiative, siblings, short journeys, and self-effort. It reflects our ability to express ourselves, take risks, build relationships with peers, and actively shape our environment through effort. When the moon occupies the third house, its reflective, sensitive, and nurturing nature intertwines with communication and self-expression. The emotional world finds an outlet through writing, speaking, networking, or artistic talents. The mind seeks emotional fulfillment through connections, learning, and sharing ideas. The moon's fundamental role remains the same, to nurture and adapt, but here it nurtures relationships with siblings, enhances communication skills, and fuels the courage to step into new ventures. Emotional moods strongly influence their willingness to initiate action. When emotionally secure, they are bold and expressive, but when unsettled, hesitation and fear of judgment may arise. In terms of strength, the moon generally acts favorably in the third house, though its influence depends on its waxing or waning phase and affliction. A waxing strong moon blesses the native with persuasive speech, literary or artistic skills, emotional resilience, and harmonious sibling relationships. If the moon is waning or afflicted by malefic aspects, it may cause inconsistency in efforts, emotional dependency on validation from others, or communication issues. In Taurus, where the moon is exalted, it brings excellent communication abilities and courageous emotional expression. In Scorpio, it may create emotional restlessness, fearfulness, or strained sibling ties. The impact on life is significant. These natives often channel their emotional needs into creative pursuits, personal branding, writing, or entrepreneurial ventures. They possess the potential to influence others through heartfelt communication. Emotional satisfaction often comes from peer relationships and intellectual exchange rather than solitary pursuits. From the third house, the moon aspects the 9th house, the house of higher knowledge, philosophy, dharma, and fortune. This aspect creates a strong emotional connection to belief systems, teachers, and long-distance journeys. The native often seeks emotional anchoring through faith, learning, or mentorship. Stability in communication strengthens their ability to pursue larger goals and align with their higher purpose. In summary, when the moon graces the third house, it empowers the individual to communicate with empathy, initiate with intuition, and build emotional resilience through self-expression. Consistent emotional strength turns their voice into their greatest asset. The fourth house, or Sukhbhava, governs emotional foundations, mother, home life, inner peace, real estate, and vehicles. It signifies our deepest roots, emotional security, and comfort zones, forming the psychological base of the horoscope. When the moon resides in the 4th house, it comes into its most natural and potent environment. As the natural significator of emotions, home and mother, the moon here amplifies its nurturing, protective, and emotionally adaptive nature manifold. It finds one of its most comfortable abodes in this house. The moon's fundamental role remains to nurture, stabilize, and emotionally connect. In the 4th house, it nurtures the internal world, providing emotional depth, a strong need for belonging, and an intrinsic drive to seek security through home, family, and emotional relationships. Regarding strength, the moon is immensely powerful in the 4th house. If waxing and unafflicted, it acts as a strong benefic, granting inner peace, supportive family environments, and material comforts like property and vehicles. An exalted moon in Taurus here bestows abundant emotional strength, popularity, and domestic happiness. A debilitated moon in Scorpio, however, may create emotional turbulence, a troubled relationship with the mother, frequent changes in residence, or deep internal insecurities despite external comforts. The impact on life is profound. Such individuals often prioritize emotional security above all else. A harmonious home environment directly fuels their confidence and happiness. They seek emotional connections through land, heritage, or nurturing roles. A disturbed moon can manifest as emotional dependency, instability, or chronic dissatisfaction with living conditions. From the 4th house, the moon aspects the 10th house, the realm of career, public life, status, and karmic responsibilities. This aspect weaves emotional needs with professional aspirations. The individual's emotional state heavily influences their career decisions and public image. If emotionally stable, they can achieve great recognition through empathetic leadership and public service. If unstable, emotional fluctuations may impact career growth and reputation. In essence, the moon in the 4th house nourishes the emotional core of life. When protected and balanced, it leads to a life filled with internal contentment, familial harmony, and emotional legacy. If neglected, it can create a restless search for peace, despite worldly achievements. The 5th house, or Putra Bhava, governs creativity, intelligence, progeny, romance, speculative gains, and all forms of self-expression. It represents our ability to create, be it ideas, art, or legacy through children. When the moon occupies the 5th house, it brings its nurturing, imaginative, and emotionally responsive nature into the fields of creativity, intellect, and emotional bonds. Emotional experiences fuel creative expression and influence decision-making processes strongly. The fundamental role of the moon remains consistent, nurturing, adapting, and connecting emotionally. But here it nurtures creativity, emotional intelligence, and romantic connections. These individuals feel most fulfilled when they can express themselves emotionally through art, children, teaching, or heartfelt interactions. In terms of strength, the moon behaves generally well in the 5th house, acting mostly as a benefic unless severely afflicted. A waxing moon enhances imagination, literary talents, parenting abilities, and emotional charisma. A waning or afflicted moon may bring emotional insecurities in matters of love, creativity blocks, or emotional dependency on children or romantic partners. If exalted in Taurus, the native enjoys tremendous creative intelligence and finds emotional satisfaction through artistic or intellectual pursuits. If debilitated in Scorpio, emotional instability can cloud judgment, leading to impulsive decisions in love or speculation. The impact on life is highly significant. Such natives often derive their emotional strength from creative output or children. Their love affairs tend to be emotionally intense, and their personal happiness is often linked to how successfully they express their inner emotional world. If the moon is troubled, emotional over-involvement or attachment to speculative activities can cause distress. From the 5th house, the moon aspects the 11th house, the sphere of social networks, gains, ambitions, and large group associations. This aspect connects emotional fulfillment with aspirations and friendships. The native may find emotional nourishment through social circles, group activities, and fulfillment of long-term desires. However, emotional fluctuations can affect their ability to maintain consistent relationships within larger groups. In summary, when the moon is positioned in the 5th house, it beautifully blends emotional needs with creativity, intellect, and legacy. Proper nurturing of emotional expression here leads to great joy, recognition, and a fulfilling life journey.
The 6th house, known as Shatrubhava, governs daily work, service, debts, diseases, enemies, obstacles, and the strength to overcome life's difficulties. It reflects our ability to deal with challenges, discipline, and karmic debts from past actions. When the moon is placed in the 6th house, its sensitive, nurturing, and adaptive energies are directed towards service, problem-solving, and handling conflicts. The emotional body becomes intertwined with daily struggles, routines, and the need to serve or heal others. The fundamental role of the moon remains to nurture, reflect, and adapt, But here, it nurtures resilience, caregiving tendencies, and the emotional endurance needed to tackle adversities. These individuals often derive emotional satisfaction by helping others or maintaining daily routines that bring emotional security. In terms of strength, the moon's placement in the 6th house can be challenging, though not necessarily negative. A strong, waxing, and unafflicted moon lends emotional resilience, the ability to manage stress, and healing abilities, often making excellent nurses, counselors, or social workers. However, a waning or afflicted moon may result in emotional instability under pressure, psychosomatic health issues, or emotional conflicts in the workplace. Exalted moon in Taurus here provides the emotional tenacity to overcome adversities with grace. A debilitated moon in Scorpio may lead to chronic emotional stress, secret enemies, or fluctuating health concerns. The impact on life is intense but transformative. Natives may find that their emotional well-being is constantly tested by routine pressures, health matters, or conflicts with others. If handled wisely, these tests cultivate emotional maturity, compassion, and a powerful service-driven attitude. If mishandled, it can lead to emotional burnout, anxiety, or hidden resentment. From the 6th house, the moon aspects the 12th house, the domain of isolation, losses, moksha, liberation, and subconscious patterns. This aspect creates a deep emotional link to hidden fears, spiritual service, and the need for emotional release. It can bring intuitive healing abilities, or if negative, may pull the native into emotional escapism or secretive habits if not channeled properly. In essence, the moon in the 6th house demands emotional discipline. When embraced with awareness, it grants the strength to heal both self and others, turning struggles into stepping stones for emotional and spiritual growth. The 7th house, or Kalatrabhava, governs partnerships, marriage, contracts, and public relationships. It reflects how we relate to others, our approach to one-on-one interactions, and the nature of our most significant relationships, particularly with spouses. When the moon resides in the 7th house, its sensitive, nurturing, and emotionally adaptive energy infuses the native's approach to relationships and partnerships. The emotional world becomes closely tied to others seeking emotional security through intimate partnerships, both personal and professional. The fundamental role of the moon is to nurture, reflect, and emotionally connect. Here, it nurtures the relationship dynamics and emotional bonding between the native and others. These individuals often seek emotional fulfillment through their partners, finding deep satisfaction in mutual emotional exchange and care. The way they respond emotionally to others can shape the nature of their relationships, creating a highly intuitive and empathetic connection. In terms of strength, the moon acts primarily as a benefic when placed in the 7th house, though its effects can be tempered by its waxing or waning phases and any afflictions. A waxing, strong moon brings harmonious, emotionally fulfilling relationships, deep empathy, and an ability to understand the emotional needs of others. However, a waning or afflicted moon can result in emotional dependency on others, difficulty in balancing independence and intimacy, or vulnerability in marriage. If exalted in Taurus, the moon can bless the native with emotionally fulfilling relationships and a nurturing spouse. In Scorpio, where it is debilitated, emotional turbulence, misunderstandings, or a tendency to become overly attached to the partner can create strain in relationships. The impact on life is significant. These individuals often find emotional security in their relationships, particularly with spouses or close partners. Their emotional stability is deeply intertwined with how well their partnerships function. If their relationships are harmonious, their emotional world thrives. But if disturbed, they may experience emotional turmoil or insecurity. Their natural sensitivity to others can make them excellent partners, but may also make them vulnerable to being overly influenced or swayed by their partner's moods. From the 7th house, the moon aspects the onest house, the house of self, identity, and personality. This aspect creates a dynamic where the native sense of self is deeply connected to how they interact and are perceived by others. Their emotional state can be heavily influenced by their relationships, and they may struggle with self-image issues if their relationships are unstable or unfulfilling. In summary, the moon in the 7th house creates individuals who seek emotional fulfillment and security through relationships. When nurtured properly, this placement brings harmonious, mutually supportive partnerships. If emotional imbalances occur, however, it can lead to dependency or emotional turbulence in the realm of love and marriage. The 8th house, known as Randra Bhava, governs transformation, secrets, mysteries, hidden talents, occult knowledge, inheritance, and deep emotional experiences. It reflects the profound changes, challenges, and transformations we undergo throughout life, particularly in the areas of intimacy, shared resources, and psychological depths. When the moon occupies the 8th house, its nurturing, sensitive, and emotionally adaptive energy is drawn into the realm of profound transformation. The emotional body here becomes deeply tied to secrets, intense experiences, shared resources, and even the unconscious mind. These individuals are likely to experience profound emotional transformations throughout their life, often triggered by crises or deep emotional bonds. The fundamental role of the moon remains to nurture, adapt, and emotionally connect. But in the 8th house, it nurtures resilience, emotional depth, and a capacity for emotional rebirth. These individuals often experience emotional upheaval or emotional crises that, over time, help them uncover hidden truths about themselves and others. They may have an innate ability to heal emotionally, sometimes even through intense or transformative life experiences. In terms of strength, the moon in the 8th house can be both a benefic and malefic depending on its condition. A waxing, unafflicted moon can bring emotional depth, the ability to heal through transformative experiences, and the strength to deal with challenges surrounding shared resources, inheritances, or intimacy. However, if the moon is waning or afflicted, emotional turmoil, fears, and intense psychological patterns can emerge. There can be deep emotional insecurities tied to trust, vulnerability, or even financial matters. Exalted in Taurus, this placement brings emotional stability amidst transformation, while a debilitated moon in Scorpio can lead to deep emotional turmoil, distrust, and fears of abandonment or loss. The impact on life is profound and intense. These natives often face emotional crises or deep emotional bonds that change their entire perspective on life. Whether it's through relationships, inheritance, or psychological exploration, the emotional depth they experience is transformative. The 8th house moon may also give a natural interest in the occult, psychology, or any field that involves exploring the unseen or hidden realms of existence. If negative patterns are not dealt with, this placement may lead to issues with control, possessiveness, or emotional manipulation in relationships. From the 8th house, the moon aspects the 20th house, the house of wealth, speech, and family. This aspect creates an emotional link between the native's transformation and their material security or resources. Sudden changes in financial or family situations can deeply affect their emotional state. On a positive note, this aspect can help the individual understand the deeper emotional aspects of money and family, and possibly lead to the ability to heal financial or familial wounds. In essence, the moon in the 8th house compels individuals to face their emotional shadows and undergo deep transformation. With self-awareness and emotional healing, this placement offers profound growth and the ability to navigate life's emotional challenges with strength and resilience. The 9th house, or Dharma Bhava, governs higher knowledge, philosophy, spirituality, long-distance travel, and Dharma, the path of life, and moral code. It reflects our beliefs, education, wisdom, and the way we seek truth and higher understanding in life. When the moon occupies the 9th house, its emotionally nurturing and adaptive energies are directed towards seeking emotional fulfillment through wisdom, belief systems, and spiritual experiences. These individuals often feel deeply connected to their philosophies, religions, or educational pursuits, deriving emotional nourishment from a search for higher meaning and truth. The fundamental role of the moon is to nurture and emotionally connect, but here it nurtures the desire to explore deeper philosophical or spiritual realms. These individuals tend to be emotionally fulfilled when they expand their understanding of the world or align themselves with a higher purpose. The moon in the 9th house seeks emotional stability through intellectual and spiritual pursuits, often looking for guidance from teachers, mentors, or sacred traditions. In terms of strength, the moon's influence in the 9th house can be both empowering and challenging, depending on its condition. A waxing, unafflicted moon in this house brings emotional satisfaction through travel, philosophical learning, and spiritual exploration. It can make the native compassionate and open-minded, with a deep desire to share wisdom. However, a waning or afflicted moon may create emotional instability related to belief systems or an inability to find true philosophical alignment. This can also manifest as a tendency to seek constant change, restlessness, or emotional confusion when it comes to moral or spiritual convictions. An exalted moon in Taurus in this house provides emotional balance through spiritual practices or higher education, while a debilitated moon in Scorpio can create emotional confusion, loss of faith, or excessive attachment to dogmatic beliefs. The impact on life is significant. Individuals with the moon in the 9th house often seek emotional fulfillment by aligning their lives with a higher moral or philosophical code. This can lead to a life filled with spiritual growth, exploration, or profound intellectual achievements. If the moon is well placed, it may inspire the individual to travel, teach, or embrace a life of higher learning. However, if the moon is afflicted, it can lead to emotional insecurity in matters of faith, an unstable sense of purpose, or a lack of clarity in terms of one's long-term life direction. From the 9th house, the moon aspects the 3rd house, the realm of communication, siblings, and self-effort. This aspect connects the native's emotional world with their ability to communicate and express ideas. There is often a strong link between emotional fulfillment and the way the individual shares their beliefs and wisdom with others. They may find emotional satisfaction in teaching, writing, or intellectual exchange, but if emotionally unsettled, their communication may become scattered or disconnected from their true beliefs. In essence, the moon in the 9th house urges individuals to seek emotional nourishment through higher education, travel, and spiritual exploration. When nurtured, this placement can bring deep inner peace. The 10th house, or Karma Bhava, governs career, public life, social standing, authority, and reputation. It represents our ambitions, our actions in the public sphere, and how we are perceived in the professional world. The 10th house also reflects our relationship with authority figures and the legacy we create in our lifetime. When the moon is placed in the 10th house, its emotionally intuitive and adaptive energy is focused on public life, career, and the individual's role in society. These individuals seek emotional fulfillment through their professional achievements, social status, and their ability to make an impact in the world. Their emotional well-being is often strongly connected to how successful or recognized they are in their professional life. The fundamental role of the moon in this house remains nurturing and emotionally connecting, but here it nurtures public recognition, career growth, and professional success. These individuals often find emotional satisfaction through the roles they play in society or through their achievements in their field. A moon in the 10th house is highly motivated by a need for approval, recognition, and the ability to make a tangible contribution to the world. In terms of strength, the moon can be a powerful benefic in the 10th house, bringing emotional fulfillment through career advancement, leadership, and social recognition. A waxing strong moon gives an intuitive, empathetic, and nurturing approach to leadership, making these individuals naturally capable of managing or guiding others. They may also excel in fields that require emotional intelligence, such as counseling, healthcare, or public service. However, a waning or afflicted moon can create emotional instability in the professional sphere, leading to mood swings, insecurity about their status, or struggles with authority figures. If exalted in Taurus, this placement provides emotional stability, a strong career path, and a solid reputation. A debilitated moon in Scorpio may bring emotional turbulence in the workplace or public life, potentially leading to power struggles or a sense of dissatisfaction despite outward success. The impact on life is profound. Individuals with the moon in the 10th house often find their emotional well-being intertwined with their career and public standing. Their mood and sense of self-worth can be directly affected by their achievements and recognition. When emotionally satisfied with their professional life, they are likely to be more confident and stable. However, if their career or social status is in turmoil, it can deeply impact their emotional health, causing feelings of insecurity or emotional discontent. From the 10th house, the moon aspects the 4th house, the house of home, family, and emotional foundation. This aspect creates a link between the native's emotional stability and their home life. A harmonious career or public life directly supports emotional well-being, while issues in the professional sphere may negatively affect their sense of peace and security at home. The balance between work and home life becomes crucial for emotional equilibrium. In essence, the moon in the 10th house drives individuals to seek emotional fulfillment through career success and public recognition. With a stable, positive placement, this moon enhances leadership abilities and public service. If emotionally troubled, however, can lead to dissatisfaction, insecurity, or imbalance between personal life and career. The 11th house, or Labha Bhava, governs friendships, social networks, long-term goals, gains, and aspirations. It represents our hopes, dreams, and the people who help us achieve them. The 11th house reflects our ability to work within a community to achieve mutual goals, and it is the house of fulfillment of desires and ambitions. When the moon is placed in the 11th house, its emotionally intuitive and adaptive energies are directed towards social connections, group activities, and the pursuit of long-term goals. These individuals find emotional fulfillment through their friendships, social networks, and collective endeavors. Their emotional world is often closely tied to the groups they belong to and their sense of belonging within society. The fundamental role of the moon here remains to nurture, connect, and emotionally bond. In the 11th house, it nurtures the individual's relationships with friends, colleagues, and social circles. These individuals are deeply attuned to the emotional needs of their groups and often find emotional nourishment through shared experiences and mutual support. Their emotional well-being is closely linked to their sense of connection with like-minded individuals and their participation in causes that align with their personal ideals. In terms of strength, the moon in the 11th house is generally a benefic placement, bringing emotional fulfillment through social connections, group activities, and the achievement of aspirations. A waxing, strong moon enhances the individual's ability to form deep emotional bonds within groups, making them highly empathetic and supportive friends. These individuals often find emotional strength in collective goals and humanitarian pursuits. However, a waning or afflicted moon may bring emotional instability in friendships, feelings of alienation, or difficulty in aligning personal goals with group interests. Exalted in Taurus, the moon here provides emotional stability and long-term fulfillment through group engagements. A debilitated moon in Scorpio, however, may create emotional tensions within social circles or lead to emotional detachment from the collective good. The impact on life is significant. Natives with the moon in the 11th house often derive emotional satisfaction from their social life and the pursuit of collective goals. These individuals are often driven by the desire to make a difference, and their friendships or affiliations play a pivotal role in their emotional growth. If emotionally supported by their networks, they can achieve great success and feel emotionally secure. On the other hand, if their friendships or social goals are disrupted, they may experience emotional turbulence, alienation, or a loss of direction in life. From the 11th house, the moon aspects the 5th house, the realm of creativity, self-expression, romance, and children. This aspect creates an emotional link between the native's sense of social fulfillment and their creative or romantic life. The individual may find emotional satisfaction in creative group activities, artistic collaborations, or romantic relationships that align with their ideals. However, if there is emotional imbalance, the native might feel torn between group commitments and personal creative or romantic desires. In essence, the moon in the 11th house draws emotional fulfillment from the 12th house, or Vyaya Bhava, governs isolation, hidden matters, subconscious mind, spirituality, losses, and the final stages of life. It represents the unseen realms, our inner world, and the deep emotional and psychological patterns that shape our behavior. The 12th house also signifies experiences that take us beyond the material world, often into spirituality or subconscious realms. When the moon occupies the 12th house, its emotionally sensitive and adaptive energies are drawn into the realm of the unconscious, isolation, and spiritual seeking. These individuals often have an intuitive and deep emotional world, sometimes struggling to express their feelings openly or feeling disconnected from their surroundings. Their emotional fulfillment may be sought in solitude, introspection, or spiritual pursuits, and they may have a natural inclination toward understanding the mysteries of the mind and soul. The fundamental role of the moon in the 12th house remains nurturing and connecting, but here it nurtures emotional healing, spiritual growth, and emotional release. These individuals are often emotionally connected to their inner world, their dreams, and the unconscious forces at play in their lives. There may be a sense of emotional vulnerability or sensitivity to external energies, and these individuals often require time alone to process their emotions. They may find solace in retreating from the world to connect with their innermost feelings or to explore spiritual practices that bring them peace. In terms of strength, the moon in the 12th house can be both a benefic and malefic placement, depending on its condition. A waxing, strong moon in the 12th house offers the ability to deeply connect with the unconscious mind and engage in profound spiritual or emotional healing. These individuals may have a natural ability to help others heal or find peace through their emotional understanding. However, a waning or afflicted moon can lead to emotional isolation, hidden fears, or subconscious emotional turmoil. It can make the individual feel disconnected from the world or their own emotions, leading to an emotional sense of loss or confusion. Exalted in Taurus, this placement provides emotional stability through solitude and spiritual practices, while a debilitated moon in Scorpio may result in intense emotional struggles, self-sabotage, or an inability to let go of past emotional baggage. The impact on life is deeply spiritual and transformative. Individuals with the moon in the 12th house often experience emotional highs and lows, especially when dealing with hidden emotional or psychological issues. They may find themselves seeking emotional solace in spiritual practices, meditation, or quiet reflection. The emotional challenges they face may not always be visible to the outside world, but they are deeply felt and have the potential to lead to significant inner growth. If this placement is well aspected, the individual may experience spiritual enlightenment and healing. But if afflicted, there can be a tendency toward emotional escapism, depression, or being overly sensitive to external energies.
The sun, or Surya, is the significator of soul, authority, vitality, ego, and the essential self. It represents our core identity, leadership qualities, and the force of willpower and ambition. The sun radiates masculine, directive energy. It illuminates and empowers, but also can burn if unchecked. When the nurturing, emotional moon meets the authoritative, radiant sun, the blending of their energies creates a profound impact. Here, The emotional sensitivity of the moon and the fiery authority of the sun combine. The individual's emotions and ego merge, making them highly self-aware, but also prone to internal conflicts between heart and pride. There's a deep need for self-expression and emotional validation, often linked to their sense of identity and leadership. In life, this conjunction manifests as a strong emotional personality. The individual often finds it difficult to separate feelings from ego. Their emotional responses are tied to how they perceive themselves. Confidence can be high, but emotional vulnerability may also be present beneath the surface. Depending on the strength of the conjunction, it can either create emotionally intelligent leaders or lead to struggles with emotional impulsiveness and stubborn pride. Relationships, career, and even health are closely influenced by how well they integrate their emotional and authoritative sides. In terms of functional status, the nature of the conjunction highly depends on the proximity of the planets. If the moon is too close to the sun, generally within 12 degrees, it becomes combust, losing much of its strength. This can result in emotional insecurity, masked by external confidence. A strong non-combust moon with the sun can make the individual emotionally resilient and authoritative. The sun usually retains its authority, but the moon's nurturing qualities might feel suppressed. If the conjunction falls in exalted signs like Aries for the sun or Taurus for the moon, it strengthens both. In debilitated conditions, sun in Libra or moon in Scorpio, emotional turmoil and ego clashes are more likely. From the house they occupy, both the sun and the moon will aspect the seventh house, the house of partnerships, marriage, and public relations. Their combined energy impacts how the individual forms relationships. A positive conjunction can make the native emotionally loyal, dignified in partnerships, and commanding respect. However, an afflicted conjunction may cause power struggles, emotional dependency, or ego clashes in close relationships and public dealings. In essence, the conjunction of the sun and moon represents a profound merging of mind and soul, emotion and identity. When harmonized, it grants the strength to lead with both heart and will. When imbalanced, it creates emotional ego battles that the native must consciously address. Mercury, or Buddha, is the planet of intellect, communication, logic, analysis, and adaptability. It governs speech, writing, learning, business, and all forms of cognitive function. Mercury is youthful, witty, and curious, always analyzing, interpreting, and expressing. When Mercury, the messenger, conjoins the moon, the planet of emotions, instincts, and subconscious reactions, the result is a mind that thinks and feels in the same breath. These two are naturally compatible. Both are quick, changeable, and impressionable, which makes this conjunction one of fluency between thought and emotion. The moon gives Mercury emotional depth. Mercury gives the moon mental clarity. Together, they create a highly perceptive and articulate personality. In life, this conjunction results in an individual with emotional intelligence and expressive power. They are often excellent communicators, counselors, writers, or speakers. People who can translate feelings into words effortlessly. Their thought process is empathetic. Their communication gentle and persuasive. However, when afflicted, it can lead to overthinking, emotional confusion, or manipulative tendencies, using words to mask deeper insecurities or to emotionally sway others. Functionally, both the moon and Mercury are benefic planets. Mercury is neutral by nature but becomes friendly with the moon when conjoined, especially if both are placed in signs like Cancer, moon's domain, Virgo, Mercury's exaltation, or Gemini. A waxing moon with a strong Mercury makes for brilliance in emotional processing and verbal expression. But if the moon is weak or waning, and Mercury is combust, retrograde, or afflicted by malefics like Rahu or Saturn, the native may suffer from emotional restlessness, anxiety, or inconsistent thinking. This conjunction aspects the seventh house, the house of partnerships, communication with others, and public interaction. This enhances one's ability to communicate with emotional sensitivity in relationships. A well-placed conjunction leads to smooth, heartfelt exchanges and an ability to negotiate and understand others emotionally. A poorly placed one, however, may bring miscommunications, emotional misunderstandings, or mood-driven arguments in partnerships. Ultimately, the Moon-Mercury conjunction forms the voice of the heart. It brings the power to communicate not just thoughts, but feelings. When balanced, it results in poetic intelligence and emotional clarity. When disturbed, it causes emotional mental noise, a mind overwhelmed by fluctuating feelings and overanalysis. Venus, or Shukra, is the planet of love, beauty, pleasure, relationships, and artistic expression. It governs attraction, luxury, aesthetics, sensuality, and harmony. Venus is graceful, romantic, and diplomatic, the refined connoisseur of life's comforts and emotional bonds. When Venus unites with the moon, the planet of emotions, intuition, and inner needs, the result is a beautifully harmonious blend of feeling and affection. These two are natural friends in Vedic astrology, and when joined, they enhance each other's soft, nurturing, and expressive qualities. The emotional nature of the moon is given aesthetic and romantic depth by Venus, while Venus's charm is infused with emotional sincerity and softness from the moon. In life, this conjunction manifests as a deeply romantic, artistic, and emotionally expressive individual. There's a strong desire for emotional closeness, beauty, and harmony in relationships. Such natives have an innate charm, often magnetic, affectionate, and peace-loving. They're emotionally moved by art, music, beauty, and love itself. However, when afflicted or imbalanced, this conjunction can lead to emotional dependency, unrealistic expectations in love, or indulgence in pleasures as a coping mechanism. Functionally, both planets are benefic and friendly toward each other, making this one of the gentler, more graceful conjunctions. If the moon is strong and waxing, and Venus is placed in signs like Taurus, Libra, its own signs, or Pisces, its exaltation, the native enjoys emotional richness, luxury, artistic talent, and fulfilling relationships. However, if the moon is waning or placed in Scorpio, it's debilitation, or if Venus is combust or afflicted by malefics like Saturn or Rahu, it can distort emotional clarity. In such cases, emotional confusion, heartbreaks, or addictive tendencies might manifest. This pair aspects the seventh house from its placement, the domain of committed relationships, partnerships, and marriage. It brings emotional sweetness and romantic intensity to partnerships. If balanced, it makes for compassionate, romantic, and loyal partners who seek deep emotional and aesthetic connection. If unbalanced, the same emotional intensity can lead to dependency, possessiveness, or disappointment due to unrealistic ideals. In essence, the moon and Venus together create an emotionally poetic soul, someone who feels deeply, loves gracefully, and expresses emotions through beauty, art, and affection. This is the heart of the artist, the romantic, the emotional nurturer. When grounded, it gives emotional intelligence through grace. When imbalanced, it seeks love in places where emptiness often follows. Mars, or Mongol, is the planet of action, aggression, passion, and courage. It represents raw energy, drive, and the will to fight for one's desires. Mars rules blood, muscles, warfare, and the assertive instincts. Its nature is fiery, direct, and forceful, often impulsive, but highly potent when channeled properly. When the gentle, sensitive moon conjoins the fiery, assertive Mars, it creates a powerful emotional dynamic. This union fuses feeling with fire, creating an individual who experiences emotions with intensity and reacts quickly to emotional triggers. The moon softens Mars slightly, while Mars energizes the moon. The result? Emotional volatility, strong instincts, and high reactivity, either deeply driven or emotionally explosive. In life, this conjunction makes the native passionate, action-oriented, and emotionally brave. There is a boldness in expressing feelings, but also a tendency toward impatience, anger, or even emotional aggression. If positively channeled, this combination produces emotionally resilient individuals, fighters with purpose, protectors with heart. However, when afflicted, it can manifest as mood swings, impulsive decisions, or deep internal unrest. Emotional scars may fuel their ambition or, conversely, sabotage their peace of mind. Functionally, the moon is soft and receptive, while Mars is hard and assertive. They are natural enemies in Vedic astrology. This often leads to emotional friction and restlessness unless balanced by house, sign, or aspects. A strong moon with a disciplined Mars in friendly signs like Cancer, moon's home, or Aries, Mars's home, can yield a deeply caring warrior persona. However, if the moon is debilitated in Scorpio or Mars is in a water sign without control, the energy may turn manipulative, emotionally hostile, or overly defensive. If Mars combusts or dominates, the moon's emotional softness is compromised. This conjunction aspects the seventh house from wherever it sits, influencing relationships and partnerships. The native brings passion and intensity into relationships, but may also carry confrontation or possessiveness. A balanced combination creates fiercely loyal and protective partners. An afflicted one leads to emotional dominance, overreactions, or controlling tendencies in partnerships. Ultimately, the Moon-Mars conjunction births a heart that burns with purpose. It empowers emotions with action. And if the fire is balanced, the native becomes emotionally fearless. But when that fire runs wild, emotional battles and inner restlessness must be tamed with maturity and awareness. Jupiter, or Guru, is the planet of wisdom, expansion, spirituality, and higher knowledge. It governs philosophy, dharma, teaching, abundance, and righteousness. Jupiter is the divine guide, benevolent, optimistic, and expansive in every domain it touches. When Jupiter joins the moon, the planet of emotions, instincts, and the mind, it forms one of the most auspicious combinations in Vedic astrology, traditionally called Gajacesari Yoga. This is a natural union between the emotional mind and higher knowledge. Jupiter uplifts the moon's emotional sensitivity, stabilizes it with wisdom, and expands it with spiritual clarity. In return, the moon softens Jupiter's philosophical weight with warmth and receptivity. In life, this conjunction manifests as emotional maturity, deep compassion, and a natural inclination toward ethical thinking. These individuals are often seen as wise beyond their years, emotionally grounded, spiritually tuned, and mentally stable. They are generous, forgiving, and naturally inclined toward teaching, healing, or spiritual pursuits. However, if the conjunction is afflicted, it may lead to overindulgence in emotions, blind optimism, or misplaced idealism. Functionally, both Jupiter and the moon are benefic and friendly to each other. If the moon is waxing and Jupiter is strong, especially in signs like Cancer, moon's domain and Jupiter's exaltation, Pisces or Sagittarius, Jupiter signs, the conjunction becomes powerfully positive. It brings strong intuition, divine grace, and sound moral judgment. However, if the moon is waning or debilitated in Scorpio, and Jupiter is afflicted or retrograde, the emotional idealism may lack practical grounding, leading to delusion or excessive emotional dependence on belief systems. From the house of placement, their seventh aspect influences partnerships, marriage, and dealings with the public. A well-placed Moon-Jupiter conjunction brings harmony, grace, and moral compass into relationships. The native is loyal, nurturing, and deeply respectful toward partners. In challenging placements, however, there may be overcommitment, emotional naivety, or a tendency to trust too easily, leading to imbalances in give and take. Ultimately, the moon and Jupiter together bless the native with a heart that learns and a mind that feels. When balanced, this conjunction creates spiritually aligned individuals who lead with empathy and wisdom. When imbalanced, it requires grounding to align emotions not just with belief, but with discernment. Saturn, or Shani, is a planet of discipline, delay, karma, endurance, and hard-earned wisdom. It represents structure, responsibility, restraint, and the reality of time. Saturn's energy is heavy, serious, and slow-moving. It tests, teaches, and transforms through trials. When Saturn conjoins the moon, the planet of emotions, intuition, and inner sensitivity, this union creates an emotionally complex combination. The moon wants comfort, connection, and flow. Saturn imposes delay, structure, and detachment. Together, they often manifest as emotional restraint, inner loneliness, or a deep sense of duty that affects emotional expression. In life, this conjunction tends to bring seriousness to one's emotional landscape. The native often feels older than their age emotionally, carrying emotional burdens or responsibilities from a young age. On the positive side, it grants emotional maturity, discipline, and great emotional endurance. On the negative side, it can result in emotional coldness, depression, suppressed feelings, or difficulty in expressing affection openly. Such individuals are often introspective, reserved, and cautious in relationships. Functionally, the moon and Saturn are natural enemies in Vedic astrology. Saturn tends to dry and restrict the emotional fluidity of the moon. If the moon is waxing and Saturn is strong, say in signs like Capricorn or Aquarius, this conjunction can result in controlled emotional power and a highly dependable nature. But if the moon is waning or placed in Scorpio, or if Saturn is in Cancer, its debilitation, emotional isolation, fear, or prolonged sadness may be experienced. This conjunction also becomes intense during Sad Sati or Saturn's transit over the moon. From wherever they sit, this pair aspects the seventh house, influencing partnerships and public image. The impact here is often karmic. Relationships may be slow to form, involve age gaps, or demand patience and effort. While long-term commitment is possible, warmth and open emotional expression may be lacking unless supported by benefic aspects elsewhere. At its core, The Moon-Saturn conjunction teaches emotional responsibility. When handled consciously, it can produce people who are emotionally dependable, deeply reflective, and wise. But if left unchecked, it can result in emotional suppression, fear of abandonment, or chronic emotional fatigue. The soul learns to endure, and through that endurance, becomes unshakably strong. Rahu is the north node of the moon, a shadow planet with no physical form, yet immense psychological influence. It represents illusion, obsession, unquenchable desires, foreign elements, and unconventional thinking. Rahu breaks norms, challenges tradition, and magnifies whatever touches. When Rahu conjoins the moon, the planet of mind, emotions, and instincts, it creates a highly volatile and intense emotional nature. Rahu amplifies the emotional frequency of the moon, often beyond balance. The result is an emotionally charged personality, prone to overthinking, paranoia, or emotional illusions. This conjunction can make the native emotionally brilliant or emotionally unstable, depending on placement and strength. In life, this creates a person whose mind is hyperactive, sensitive, and often driven by deep psychological cravings. These natives are emotionally intense, imaginative, and often drawn toward the unconventional, mystical, or foreign. They may have unpredictable moods, emotional highs and lows, and a mind that oscillates between deep insight and confusion. If supported by benefics, this conjunction can create gifted minds, emotionally intelligent, intuitive, even psychic. But when afflicted, it may bring anxiety, emotional addiction, fear of abandonment, or hallucination-like thought patterns. Functionally, the moon and Rahu are enemies in classical astrology. Rahu, being a shadow entity, distorts the natural calmness of the moon. If placed in signs like Taurus or Cancer strong for the moon and under benefic aspect, this conjunction can be creative and insightful. But in signs like Scorpio, moon's debilitation, or in the 8th or 12th house, it can manifest as emotional obsession, addiction, or delusional thinking. Mental health and emotional hygiene are critical for such natives, especially during Rahu Mahadasha or transit over the natal moon. The conjunction aspects the 7th house, impacting relationships, partnerships, and public interactions. This may bring foreign connections, unconventional partners, or instability in relationships. These natives may attract or project emotional drama in partnerships unless maturity and grounding are developed. There's often a magnetic quality in how they connect, but boundaries must be consciously maintained. Ultimately, Moon and Rahu together create a mind that seeks what lies beyond the visible, emotionally and intellectually. It is a placement of emotional intensity and karmic complexity. When tamed and directed, it creates mystics, healers, and visionaries. But if left ungrounded, it traps the native in cycles of emotional illusion, instability, and craving. Ketu is the south node of the moon, a shadow planet, mystical and detached. It represents past life karma, spiritual detachment, renunciation, moksha, and deep inner insight. Unlike Rahu, Ketu dissolves what touches. It doesn't desire, it disidentifies. When Ketu conjoins the moon, the very planet it is derived from, the results are deeply karmic and psychologically profound. Ketu dissolves the emotional identity of the moon, leading to a sense of detachment from worldly feelings or even one's own emotional body. The moon governs the mind and emotions. Ketu creates a gap in that circuitry, often resulting in inner emptiness, detachment, or extraordinary spiritual perception. In life, this conjunction produces emotionally complex individuals. They may feel emotionally isolated or disconnected from family or maternal support, especially in early life. These individuals are introspective, private, and often very intuitive, sometimes psychic. They do not respond to emotions the way others do, in healthy form. This gives spiritual detachment and emotional wisdom. In afflicted states, it may manifest as emotional suppression, withdrawal, depression, or an inability to emotionally engage with others. Functionally, the moon and Ketu are natural enemies. Ketu operates without boundaries. The moon needs nurturing. If placed in strong moon signs like Cancer or Taurus and supported by benefic aspects, the native can become a spiritually gifted person, deeply intuitive and compassionate, someone who emotionally lives beyond the material plane. But in signs like Scorpio, moon debilitated, or in Dustana houses 6th, 8th, 12th, the conjunction often brings emotional alienation, psychological confusion, or inexplicable fears, often unresolved karmas carried into this life. From their placement, this pair aspects the 7th house, the domain of relationships and partnerships. The influence here can be difficult. The native may experience detachment in relationships, disinterest in emotional intimacy, or attract partners who are aloof or emotionally unavailable. In some cases, it points to karmic relationships that are deeply transformative but emotionally draining. At its essence, the Moon-Ketu conjunction is that of the spiritual seeker, one whose emotional path is not outward but inward. It is a placement that calls for healing, meditation, and self-understanding. When consciously worked with, this conjunction grants transcendental emotional intelligence. When ignored, it leads to detachment, confusion, and inner void.